Why is it that so many of us desire change? We know exactly what needs to change in our life, and we know how to change that thing, but very few of us are actually achieving the change that we desire in our lives. So, what's the problem? Many people will say that all change is scary no matter what, because we're moving into unfamiliar territory, and so we're going to be uncomfortable with that. And that is true, and it's more complicated. The reason that so many of us are stuck in not changing when we know exactly what needs to change and how to change it isn't just because change is hard. There's more to the story, and that's exactly what we're getting into today. The truth is, many of us don't trust ourselves anymore, and our word carries very little value. And this creates massive problems when we talk about making meaningful change in your life. And until we look at this part of the journey, it's going to continue to create a lot of problems when you try and change things in your life. So let me explain what I mean by this. First, if you're new to the channel, my name is Blake Chalfant. I'm 24 years old, committed to helping you express the fullness of who you are while enjoying the journey. If you enjoy the video, please do leave a like, subscribe, and I hope to see you back here for more. Okay, so let's get into the meat of this. So why do we not trust ourselves anymore, and why does our word carry so little value? Those two things are one and the same. Our word carries very little value anymore because we don't trust ourselves. And we don't trust ourselves because we have gone back and crossed our word so many times throughout our lives. So if you're anything like me, then there has been many, many moments throughout your life where your internal boundaries, where you said you were going to do something, or where you had a value of how you wanted to be treated, and it was crossed, or you didn't do the thing. And so over and over, the amount of times that that's happened to you, whether it's when you said you were going to make a change, whether you said you were going to be there on certain time, you told yourself you were going to do this exercise and you never did it. So many different things. Someone treating you badly and you not speaking up for yourself. Someone crossing your boundaries and you not saying anything, telling them what you really felt, not standing up for yourself. All of those things, they represent your boundaries being crossed. Your internal knowing of what was best for you being crossed. You didn't speak up for it. And so over time, the amount of times that you've gone back on your word, the amount of times that you haven't done the thing that you said that you were going to do, the amount of times that you have done something that you knew wasn't good for you and was bad for you, over time that creates a break in trust. All of these different parts of us that are inside of you, they stop trusting you for good reason because you're not able to take care of them. You're not doing the things that they need you to do. You're not taking care of yourself. You're not speaking up for yourself. You're not following through. And so over time, your word carries very little value because in the past, the majority of the time when you say that you were going to do something, and I'm not necessarily talking about like, yes, I'll pick up the groceries. When we're talking about real meaningful change in your life, when you said that you were going to do something, the majority of us haven't been very good about it. And most of the time, we haven't done the thing that we said that we were going to do. And so naturally, over time, if you are saying that you're going to do something today, because of the pattern of what's happened in the past, these most of the parts inside of you don't take you seriously. And you probably at some level don't even take yourself seriously. Maybe there's a moment of, yay, I'm going to finally do it. But deep down, you know you're not going to do it because you're stuck in this habit of not doing the thing that you say you're going to do. You're stuck in this habit where your word doesn't mean anything. And this creates huge problems, right? I know just recently for me, porn has been my lifelong thing since fifth grade. That's a whole other story. And it's gotten way, way better. And it's still been like very off and on a part of my life. And recently I had a moment where I realized it was no more. It just couldn't be a part of my life anymore. And I knew that it was different than all the other times in the past, but I felt like such a phony even saying that because of so many times in the past where I've said those exact same words and then nothing has changed. And I felt so cheesy saying it to other people that I was actually done with it because of how many people always are saying that they're going to do something and then they don't do it. And because of the amount of times that I have never followed through with my own word. And so now my word has been meaningless. But how am I going to actually create change in my life if I don't even believe in myself to make those changes? Where do we start? So before we get into the nitty-gritty of how to move forward with this, how to actually start rebuilding our trust in our word within ourselves, I want to normalize this a little bit more, because for many of us, we have inherited this pattern through our parents, through our ancestry, throughout time, really. When I think about the concept of having a word, like you have my word and I have my word within myself that has value, the image that comes to mind is knights and kings and queens, almost like from Braveheart, shaking hands. And they would say to each other, "You have my word." Because back then, having a word, your word had a lot of value. It had weight, it had meaning, and people knew that if you were shaking their hand and you gave them your word, that was something that they could rely on. That was something that they could trust in. And over time, people began to go back on their word and stabbed each other in the back and crossed each other's boundaries and stopped honoring each other's words. And now today, the concept of having my word, it means nothing. So many of us, our word means little to nothing. And it's largely been a forgotten concept. And so we are the ones who are tasked with rebuilding our word, starting from ground zero and starting to grow evidence, grow fruits of what our word actually means, so that when I say I'm going to do something, I don't say I'm going to do something that I don't know I'm actually going to do. When I say I'm going to do something, I know I'm going to do it. That's the energy, that's the place that we're returning to, and that's what we're being asked to do here. And so when we're talking about this journey of creating meaningful change in your life, yeah, if you have no word and you have no trust within yourself because of that, when you say you're going to create these massive life changes, it falls through. And there's nothing to hold that intention for change, because at some place you know you're not going to do it. Most of the time you don't do what you say you're going to do. So that's where we're at. And it's no small undertaking. And it's entirely possible, and it's entirely essential to the time that we are in, to you creating the change that you want to create in order to live your highest expression, in order to operate at the level you know is possible for you to show up in the world in. So moving forward, there's a couple important pieces that I want to bring in here on this journey that we're going to keep coming back to. Number one is we have to acknowledge all of the emotion, all of the sadness, all of the anger, all of the frustration, all of the breaks in trust and abandonment that all of these different parts inside of you have felt over time. You need to find a way to tap into those parts within you that don't trust you at all anymore. And a great way to do that actually is when you're on this precipice of wanting to create change in your life. Because when you're at that moment where you're starting to step into this new way of being, that's usually when all of these parts of you that don't trust you, that are scared, that don't want to change, will come up. And so this is a great opportunity to start holding space for them. But just feel into it. All the parts of you that have lost trust for you, that don't believe you, right? And so that's one thing. And we're holding the space. As the new person, the current self, your present moment adult, we are needing to hold all of these younger parts of you that don't trust you. And we're not doing it so that they can change. We're not trying to get them out the door as fast as we can. They need to feel that you are here, that you have the space for them, that you have the strength, that you have the capacity to hold space for them. And they really need to feel that, because they will learn to trust you again, but they need to know that you're not going anywhere. They need to feel that you're sturdy. They need to feel that you're grounded and that you are trustworthy. A big part of this is going to be hearing what they have to say and feeling what they have to feel. And maybe there's certain memories, certain experiences where your trust was broken, where your word was crossed. And there might be a lot of emotion there and past grief that you never felt. And so, yeah, there's going to be a holding and a healing process within this. And it's something that we can keep coming back to. And every time they come up and you're feeling they're not trusting you, that they're scared, that's when you continue to hold more space. That's when you take some deep breaths and you just sit with them. I'm not going anywhere, and this is safe. That's the repatterning journey. Now, the other side of this is that there's also going to be parts of you that are deeply scared of moving forward, of the change journey. They're going to be scared of you saying you're going to change and then not doing it and failing. Because that moment of failure, that moment where you had all this momentum and you knew you were going to change, yada yada, and then it just fell on its head and you were back to square one. That's a painful spot to be in. Over and over returning to that place, it's shameful. There's anger, there's frustration, there's hopelessness. And so there's parts of you that would rather not start the journey at all. Because these parts of you, because of the past pattern of how it's gone, they think that you're going to end up in that same hopeless place where no change was really made. And so they think over time, after doing that so many times, they think it's just easier to not try at all. And so they're going to resist it. And again, holding space for those parts of you. And this is a big piece for this part, is dare to try again. After so many times of failing, after so many times of not creating change and ending it back up at square one, we have to dare to try again. And we have to dare to believe that change is really possible. And we have to dare to believe that maybe this time is different. And maybe all of the previous times were leading to this time. We have to fully believe in ourselves. And after so many times of losing our belief, of losing our trust, in some ways it feels like taking a leap of faith and saying, I'm just going to go for it. And so a part of that is that we're not wanting to create more shame here. And so I don't want this, because it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. I'm not going to be perfect. This ideal version of change we have is not going to be how it is. And so how can we hold the deep desire to change and to do it in a good way, constantly having that as our North Star, and also knowing that it might not be perfect, and when it isn't perfect and maybe we have a mess up, that we're not going to create shame, that we're not going to go down the spiral of, oh, I guess I failed, I guess I'm back to square one. No, acknowledge what happened, like feel whatever's there. It's okay. Tell yourself it's okay and get back on the horse, because that's where we're going. That's the grit that we're needing to cultivate. It's not coming from a place of shame. It's coming from a desire to be the kind of person that you want to operate through the world with. It's coming from a deep motivation to create the kind of container that you want to hold your life in, because you know the vision of how you want to show up for your family, for your son, for your daughter, for your grandkids. You know the kind of life you want to create, and that is more meaningful than anything else. And so whatever you have to do to create the container, to create the circumstances, to be that person, that's the most important thing. But we're not going into shame, and we're not going back to, oh, poor me, I'm back to square one, I'll never change. We are changing every moment of this journey. So believe in that. Take that leap. Dare to believe in yourself. Dare to believe that this is that moment, that maybe all of the previous moments have been leading to this moment, and it all starts now. Finally, this brings me to my last point, which will be my follow-up video, because this deserves an entire video. And it is that for so many of us on this journey of change, we'll have these ecstatic moments where we know what we want to change, and then we have the intention. But for the most part, all we do is we have the intention. I want to change. I want to implement this new exercise thing, yada, yada, yada. And then we go through our day-to-days following that. And maybe just by having that intention, we do it for the first couple of days, and then we kind of stop to do it. But for the most part, we are banking on our intention being enough. And we are giving the journey up to fate, saying, I hope that this time is the time. But we need more than that, because that hasn't worked before. And so what do we need? We need containers, and we need structures. The intention is great, but we need containers and structure that are able to hold that intention. And not only hold that, but continue to feed life back into the intention. A container and structure that continually reminds you of why the intention is important, why you are doing this. A container and structure that can hold you in the change, even when you don't feel the power of the intention anymore, even when you want to give up. That's what we're wanting to do. So the containers are so important, and maybe that means having a schedule. Maybe that means joining an online community. And I'll go deep into this next week because I have many ideas for creating this container, and this is actually what I'm doing in my life right now. And for me, what that looks like is, writing things down, making schedules, making plans, making outlines of what this journey is like, and gamifying this journey of habit change, because the change we're talking about is habits. Gamifying habit change. We need more than just the intention and the hope and fate. We need containers and structure. We need to bring it down to the earth level and ground it deeply in. And so for now, think about what that might look like for you. And I'll be back next week to talk about what that looks like for me and some different practices that you can implement. And so with that, I hope that this video was helpful, and I hope that you begin your own journey of trusting yourself again, because we need more people who carry a word that has value and has meaning. Because that is a world that is full of integrity and full of people who can show up in the way that they want to. And it's important. And I'm not there yet, but I am working on it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, join us on the next one. It's so meaningful to have you here. Thank you for being here.